Welcome to another episode of Empowering Equality, the Inclusive Workplace Supply Council of Canada, or IWSCC's podcast on all things supplier diversity. I'm your host, Alex Dirksen, and I'm really excited to talk with my guests today. I've got my matching colors on as well. You might have heard of them before if you've been listening to our show. Our 2024 ASL sponsorship leader and one of our oldest IWSCC corporate members as well, RBC. So thanks so much, Jessica Gray, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. It's a Friday. It's a beautiful day out in Toronto. And I come prepared to answer all of your wonderful, enlightening questions, Alex.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you came prepared. I'm loving the warmer weather today. If you're catching this episode a little later than when we recorded, we had a little bit of a cold snap. So happy to see the sunshine on the horizon again as well. I'm ready for springtime. To kind of dive right in. When I think of RBC, and I'm sure when so many Canadians think of RBC, we think financial institution. When it comes to opportunities to work with RBC and what RBC does, is financial the whole story? Is there more to it? Can you tell me a little bit more about RBC as if I had no idea who you were?
Sure, absolutely. So, Royal Bank of Canada is a global financial institution with a purpose driven, principle led approach to developing and delivering leading performance. Our success comes from 98,000 plus employees, and the plus now
Holy moly.
even more so is because we just acquired HSBC Canada, and we're integrating those employees, their services and products into RBC as we speak.
Cool.
um, our employees leverage their imaginations and insights to bring our vision, values, and strategy to life so we can help clients thrive and communities prosper. So yeah,
Excellent.
more than just a bank. It's Canada's biggest bank and one of the largest in the world based on market capitalization. Not sure if everybody was aware of that. We have a diverse to business model with a focus on innovation and providing exceptional experiences to over 17 million clients in Canada,
Holy moly.
the, the US, and 27 other countries. Hey, and you know what? If you want to learn more about RBC, go to rbc.com. There's a wealth of reporting. We have our D&I report, our ESG report, our climate plan, our accessibility plan for the next 3 years, our Indigenous annual report known as the Chosen Journey. There's so much information at rbc.com. And then there's our whole diversity page. Beyond Banking is also up there for organizations or suppliers looking for matching for government grants, other types of grants, etc. RBC.com really shows you the mission and values of RBC as a whole.
Wow, yeah, very cool. So much to communicate, so much to do. Such a massive organization as
Yeah.
well. So I'm sure you talked about that kind of helping communities grow piece. To hear that, you hear a name like RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, you think Canada, of course, but a vast network all over the world. It sounds like helping communities all over the place, and so many communities merging with other organizations, kind of like growing the ways that you can serve your clients and everything. With so much going on, Jessica, can you tell me a little bit more about what you do at RBC and maybe a little bit about how you found yourself there?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So why don't we start with what I do at RBC? Because how I found myself here is a huge story, interesting and fun story. But for now, I lead the supplier diversity strategy across the globe. And if everybody has noticed, I will use the word strategy rather than program when I talk about supplier diversity because what happens, a program starts and ends. In order to make
Mm,
supplier diversity part of the RBC culture of something that's not going to end, we need to talk about it like a business strategy, not a social strategy, but a business strategy. And from that point of view, we have an evolving strategy that we follow. We kick the tires on that strategy every 6 months because we also need, as a supplier diversity team, to change at the rate of change of social and economic culture.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot at the IWSCC about the preparedness, the innovation, and like you mentioned, the ability to pivot for small businesses and for diverse-owned businesses. The qualities of a business owner or an entrepreneur who has already had to work through barriers in their life to kind of reach success means they've got perseverance, they've got creativity, they've got ingenuity, and that usually means innovation, which helps fuel competition. And when I even when I first started learning about supply chain diversity and supplier diversity, I feel like those were two terms that would pop up that meant slightly different things, but
Yes,
I
they
think
did.
also like merge into each other really fantastically. Having a diverse supply chain in the sense that you have a lot of different options and that you work with a lot of different businesses so that you can pivot to those changes in the economy, in our social structure, and to dramatic events that no one could have predicted necessarily, fit right in with that innovation and that creativity of having diverse owned businesses. These businesses who find their own way and solve problems in unique ways that might not necessarily be represented somewhere else. So I love the way that you put that, a strategy, this ongoing idea of working with communities and reflecting them, because I think, isn't that what supplier diversity is all about, is about reflecting our communities more and just representing the people who we work with every day a little bit better.
Absolutely, and reflecting our clients more. So imagine turning your clients into your suppliers through
Yeah,
supplier
it's
diversity.
a whole new kind of relationship.
It is, and it's. I mean, you don't have to be an RBC client to get into our supply chain, right? But just imagine that somehow you're also impacting your client base when you're looking for diverse-owned businesses that are certified, which is an important aspect as well. And I think it's really, again, it's a business strategy. It's not a social strategy. So you, as supplier diversity, has to act like a business, and within your strategy, you can have program pillars like we do at RBC. But at the
Hmm.
same time, when you look at it as a business strategy other than a social strategy, you are very clear with your business buyers and your procurement teams that these individual companies are not social charitable cases. They are actually real businesses feeding their employees so that they can feed their families.
Absolutely. I think that's an impression that we get a lot from folks outside of the community, or who are learning about supplier diversity, is that it's sort of this advantage, or it's this a free access to business and so on. And it's kind of an ongoing chance to help talk about like the benefits of our community, which is just like any other business group in a lot of ways, is to bring business owners together and to grow networks, not necessarily to guarantee that business, of course, but to get a seat at the table, to get an opportunity to be a part of the competition for businesses who might not have had access to that, or might even just think themselves that, oh, I could never succeed in that environment. We want to just help be a part of the force that encourages those folks to get out there to, improve competition, improve our supply chains, and all that fun stuff that every business owner, every entrepreneur loves. And that cyclical effect that you mentioned with RBC, a client becomes a supplier. They benefit RBC, and inevitably they benefit themselves too. We see that in diverse communities where business earned by a diverse business owner is going to expand out into their community and provide more opportunities for their friends, their family, their kids, more opportunities to learn, to grow, and to start businesses. And in every sense, the longer I think about it, the more it sounds like just a great way to grow the communities that we're a part of already, and to build new ones too.
Right. And you know what I found more and more? IWSCC suppliers and other council suppliers, these suppliers, now that they're part of a specific council with like-minded organizations, where they get to network and share best practices with, and share learnings with, they know these suppliers are starting to actually purchase from each other.
Yeah, we see that in our own community. The path to procurement in that sense, into doing business with large businesses and our corporate members like RBC, absolutely, of course, is at the heart of what we do. We want to help build those connections, but we love to help build connections within our own network and expand the community of just entrepreneurs working with entrepreneurs, growing partnerships, growing new business opportunities, maybe even building new businesses. There's all sorts of opportunity when you. I think you put it really well. When you just join a community that's made up of like-minded business owners and business owners who might have a similar experience to you, or might be able to understand the experiences that you've gone through a little bit better than maybe communities that you've been a part of so far. Or if you're a business owner out there listening to the show right now, maybe who feels like you don't know where that community is, here is supplier diversity. Maybe it's the right community for you to try and take a look at. So I would, of course, always recommend it. Helping give new opportunities to business owners all the time. I think we've kind of unpacked. One of my next questions is always kind of what supplier diversity means to you, and I feel like we've unpacked a whole lot of that. And I'd love to learn a little bit more. You mentioned it's a long story, but I would love to learn a little bit more about how you found yourself where you are now.
Oh, okay, excellent. So my my goals in my career actually started in the contact center community. Organizations like Rogers, Energy America, Direct Energy, TELUS, Clarinet, Myron Manufacturing, Adler International, companies like that, just to name a few. Right out of college, I played varsity sports in college, so I spent a lot of time on the soccer field and on the on the basketball court, and found that I had really great relationship management skills through my sports experiences. So right away went into the contact center industry. Started as like a customer service rep for cable TV, believe it or not. Eventually grew my career at Rogers, where I became a manager and helped actually build out the Rogers Direct Marketing Center, and that's when I found that I loved new things. So I was started to become pegged or known as a trailblazer, because everything I did in my early career at Rogers was something new where they were building something, and I would be put on that team to build it. For instance, the first thing that I helped them with was pay per view. I found that I was a little understood technical things as well without even realizing it, because I graduated with business admin and a minor in marketing. So I ended up in the marketing department, which was another really cool thing, going from customer service to marketing, because I could take a lot of what I've learned from our customers, being on the phone with them for 7 or 8 months, because that's how long I lasted in customer service, into some of the things we did in marketing. And at the same time, Rogers engineers were still figuring out pay per view. So they taught me ASCII coding. So I learned how to code in ASCII to load
Oh wow!
movies into the box controller. So I learned a lot about that. I actually became camera two for Mel Lastman's City Hall. So I was also a camera person
Wow!
at Rogers for Rogers
So
Community.
many,
So I did
so
that.
many different experiences.
Right. So once I got out of the call center industry, I think the last place I worked in call center was Centrica UK, which is known as in Canada as Direct Energy and Energy America. I was a North American contact center manager for Centrica UK. I decided I was going to go out on my own for a while. I was a bit burnt out, and I started working as a consultant. And one of the first gigs that I actually responded to an RFP to, so I had to compete for, was at American Express. So I responded to the federal government RFP for American Express Travel to help come in and help build their processes, because I was pretty good with process excellence from being in ops for so long. And I didn't hear back from the RFP for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So one of the leaders that I worked with at a company called, I can't remember the name of the company right now, but it was a staffing firm that I had used in my career as a leader that helped me staff up call centers. They reached out to me and said, the Royal Bank is looking for staff for a special project in recruitment. And I'm like, I'm not a
Okay.
recruiter. I never recruited anything in my life. They're like, no, but you're one of the best hiring managers that we've ever worked with because you knew how to pick candidates and build good teams, right? So my teams that I built throughout my career actually stayed for long periods of time in their positions in those companies. So I said, all right. So RBC interviewed me. They went back to the agency and said, yeah, she doesn't have any recruitment experience. They said she's going to be the best recruiter you've ever seen. Trust us. The president of this. So he was. They were like, okay, we'll bring her in. I spent a week in training at RBC. I gave a bit of feedback during my after my training, and I guess the feedback hit the spot because one of the directors in recruitment listened to me and started doing stuff. But after a week, American Express finally got back to me, and I won the bid. I was awarded the
Oh.
contract. So I left RBC, but I told the leader at RBC, I will replace myself because I know how important what you're doing is. And I literally replaced myself. They hired the person that I recommended. That person is still at RBC after 21 years,
Wow.
right? Has been promoted a few times. And when my federal government project ended at American Express, I went to visit that person at RBC. The director of recruitment that I was working with when I was previously there, walking by the cafeteria, sees me sitting there. By the time I drive home, she's left me a voicemail. And on my voicemail box, back then it was a voicemail box. I know I'm aging myself. It was a message from her saying, what are you doing now? Can you come back? So I came back to RBC two different times, two different contracts before I took permanent. And the way I eventually took a permanent role was because I finally had someone that spoke on a stage in HR that looked like me. So it was the first time that I could relate to RBC. So right after that, I became permanent, and I've been there since 2008.
Wow. Wow. You've been, it's like the old country song. You've been everywhere.
I've been
The
everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you're like a super soldier designed for supplier diversity. You build processes, you build strategies, you connect people together. It's kind of crazy how everything just sort of folds together in that way. And
It's
what a
perfect.
wild path that you've been on.
It's like Jamie Crump. I don't know if you know Jamie Crump. She
I
wrote the
do.
book Pulling Back the Curtain, the Backstage Pass on Supply Diversity. Well, she says in her book, which I've read, which helped me actually relaunch supply diversity into RBC 3 years ago. And part of the book, it says the supplier diversity professional has many roles. They're a change agent, they're a communication agent, right? And they're a relationship manager. They're sales. So I look at my role as inside sales. As
Mm,
company XYZ needs to get on somebody who's buying in the same category that their services are in or their products are in within RBC. I literally go through every single supplier in my pipeline, and I'll tell you how you get into the pipeline, and build a strategy for them before I introduce them to the business unit buyer or procurement. So inside sales. That's
absolutely.
really
Yeah.
all I do is inside sales, right?
Yeah,
So now
building those connections, helping sell those businesses to like the internal clients in your internal teams.
Exactly, right. And it's more about, I don't want to get too involved in the whole procurement process and the business buyer process,
We'd
right?
be here all day.
Yeah, my strategy follows the process to the point where I have a balanced scorecard now following that process with four metrics of the strategy clearly identified by metrics now because I'm a business strategy. I need a balanced scorecard, right?
Hmm.
I have an ROI model for each council. I'm a business strategy. I have to act like a business strategy. I literally have an ROI model. But one of the things that my main goal is to get you as a diverse owned business on somebody's radar. So when they're sitting in a purchasing project and they're talking about what they're looking for, you can raise your hand and say, I know a guy. And for once, that I know a guy is going to be someone diverse owned.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, and that's sort of the ball game from the back of house from inside. So for our listeners at home from the outside, that's sort of a great example of the connections that supplier diversity might be able to offer your business. Is new opportunities to network and new tables to get a seat at, new competitions to be a part of. We it's there's so much to unpack, and our conversations, we only have so much time. I wish
Told
we
you
had
not.
I
I told
wish
you
we
not
had
to
all
ask
day
me
together.
about my business journey. I said, don't ask me. It's all
Yeah,
my.
well, hey, I'm super glad I asked, because what a journey it was. Before we kind of say goodbye for the day, I always love to ask some more personal questions to get to know my guests a little better. We've learned a lot about the professional journey of Jessica Gray. So when you have a little bit of time to yourself, or a little bit of spare time, do you have any hobbies or ways that you like to relax to kind of found that work life balance?
Absolutely. Uh, I play strong women over 30 soccer, indoor and outdoor.
Still a soccer
Uh,
player. Very cool.
Yeah, bit of an injury my last season, so I had to take a little break. I have metal in my leg from an indoor season when I broke my ankle, but still love soccer, and I still love basketball. So my basketball career expands from not only being a varsity player and then playing in women's leagues and playing pickup even, but it also expands into I coach. So I'm a certified basketball coach
Very
with
cool.
Basketball Canada, and some of the actual I coach boys and girls at the same time, varsity, rep leagues, and some of the actual young men now that I coach, they're older now, they're in their 30s, play in the NBA. So I'll give you an example. When Kelly Olynyk was drafted to the Raptors earlier this year, my WhatsApp started pinging me. I was at an event, and I'm looking, and it's people taking pictures of their television set because there's a picture of me up on it at an
Oh, look,
NBA broadcast with Kelly. Also coached Corey Joseph, who also played for the Raptors, and
man,
yeah.
building new strengths and new opportunities everywhere you go. You can't be stopped, Jessica.
And lastly, I work as a volunteer for Canada Community Services, one of the largest Black charities in Canada. And I help disperse by rating proposals and chairing the Central Ontario Committee for the Supporting Black Canadians initiative, which gives out grants for capacity and capital building to Black not for profits all over Canada. And I just finished doing that, and we're in the middle of giving out up to, I think, $1 million right now to some of the proposals that came in that made the mark with their ratings. So that's under the
Fantastic.
yeah, it's under the United Nations African Descent Initiative. So it's in its 10th year now. It's 2024, and RBC Supplier Diversity turns 20 this year. So we've been in
Right
existence since
on.
2004. So I'm working on trying to get some really good results for our balanced scorecard in celebration of 20 years here.
Fantastic. Yeah. And hey, IWSCC will do everything we can to help support that. As a extremely busy professional, busy person, I'm sure you maybe don't always start the day the way you like to, or maybe as an athlete you do. But I'm very passionate about breakfast food, so I'm always curious. What's your favorite breakfast?
My favorite breakfast, that's a good point. It's my favorite dinner and lunch too, which is eggs with avocado toast. So I'll eat that all day for whatever meal.
Excellent.
I'm not like a really breakfast. This only has to be eaten for breakfast. So yeah,
Hmm.
do a lot of that. I do a lot of smoothies and stuff because I work out at Orange Theory as much as I can as well, which is a great place to burn off some stress and jump on the treadmill and the rower and do some
Yeah,
light weight.
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it sounds like
breakfast food,
a
Orange Theory
healthy
or food?
diet, healthy exercise.
I do my best. Yeah. I try, right? I mean, I've been working for over 45 years, right? I started working when I was about 12 or 13 years old, right? Being an immigrant, that's normal for you to start working at that age, right? Because you got to start thinking about how are you going to pay for things? What if I want to go to college? What if I want to go to
Mm.
university? What if I want to get certified in something, right? Normally, you would have to, as a teenager, look at that for yourself for the future. So that's how I grew up, always working.
Yeah, and that's a it's so tempting to unpack more, and we're coming to the end of our time now. But a great example of kind of just how those little differences in people's lives kind of lead to different situations, and sometimes that can create barriers for other folks. Sometimes it can create opportunities, and
Absolutely.
it sounds like you're a fantastic example of someone who has been on like we said an incredible journey so far. So with all that experience behind you, maybe this is a tough question, maybe it's an easy one, but for life or for work, what's a good piece of advice?
If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything. Old proverb.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. The if you're it sounds like if you're not making mistakes, yeah, you're not trying new things.
Right. Exactly. So, being a lifelong learner, I learn from my mistakes, and I literally will go look and online for courses or white papers to help me overcome and become an expert, maybe in that mistake.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah,
the way we've all got to get started with new things.
exactly. Right.
Well, that's
So, if you,
incredible.
yeah, yeah, this is
Well,
great.
yeah, it has been great. I'm sure we'll have even more chances to talk and for me to learn even more about Jessica Gray. But for our folks at home, we're at the end of our time for today. So, Jessica, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much, Alex. Have a great weekend.
Yes, yeah, I intend to.
TGIF.
And of course, thank you to our audience for joining us today. Empowering Equality is hosted by the Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada, or IWSCC. We connect disabled owned and veteran owned businesses with opportunities across Canada. Big thank you to Pod Supply for producing this episode, and to our sponsors, RBC, my guest today, and Bell as well. As our 2024 ASL leader, RBC helps us provide American Sign Language, like you may see if you're catching this episode on YouTube, for our show today and for all of our events. And they do that with additional support from champions like Bell as well. And that interpretation that you might be seeing on your screen, that's supplied by Maple Communications Canada. If you want to learn more about the IWSCC, visit www.iwscc.ca. If you want to learn more about RBC, visit rbc.com. And you'll find those links in the description for this episode, of course. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, then be sure to like, subscribe, favorite, follow, all that fun stuff. The show, IWSCC, RBC, Jessica Gray, thank you so much for joining us today. Get out there and make some mistakes and keep on empowering equality. And we'll see you next time.